Well, hello, everyone. This is Chris Nixon with Assignar, one of the co-hosts of the Dirty Booths Show, which is what we've named the podcast, the show, under something that we've done. And I want to introduce both Terri and Mike to the show today. You want to take a quick second, maybe introduce yourselves?
Sure. I'm Terri Olson. I'm a co-owner and vice president in OE Construction.
I'm Mike Eccher. I'm the team manager for OE Construction.
We could probably dig into that a little bit. We were a little bit, preparing for the show. Tell us a little bit about OE. So people may have not, if they haven't seen you guys or just give us a little background on OE and what you guys do.
Sure. So we're located in Golden, Colorado. We've been in business now about 17 years. Started the company with my son at the time, really young. I semi-retired and was all set, had everything going. And then suddenly he needed help. And so I got sucked into construction, and we've been together ever since. So we're a civil contractor. We focus on earth moving and underground utilities. Our primary type of work would be commercial, right? Private. We do some infrastructure. We also build in various states outside of Colorado, environmental landfills. We've been known to do surface mining for things like clay, but our mainstay would be commercial structures and projects, anywhere from a few acres to maybe 60 acres would be an average job site.
About 6 months ago, I actually got to come out to one of your job sites and meet some of your people, and we shot a bit of video and stuff. So,
yep, that was on a fairly good sized site, and the focus was safety, obviously, particularly trench safety,
right,
which is a big deal.
Just over 3 years.
Okay. So maybe just dig in a little bit to not everything that you do, but maybe your core, what you do. It's obviously IT tech focused, reporting and all the systems. I'm sure 1,000 other things. Maybe dig in a little bit.
Well, I'm just mainly my responsibility is the data we collect. One, to give them the ability to collect the data, and then two, that we hold on to the data and make it accessible. So it's not only data that we have from Assignar, but from the estimators to Terri for accounting, all those components, all that data gets collected. Just need to make sure that we have it somewhere else that we can grab it.
How unique do you think his position? Do you see that in other peer companies or things, like his role, his position, or?
Great question. So it is a little bit unique. Many companies, our size, we would be considered a mid-sized civil contractor in this region of the country. Many of them don't really emphasize, quote, what we might call an IT manager, right? Usually you've got somebody that has some good database or analytical skills, right, that kind of works in that capacity. But one of the reasons we brought Mike in, he and I have worked together for years and years on the back end prior to him joining. And so we kind of gave him a catch-all title, IT manager, but he's also out there doing operational oversight, in some case management, reaching into other areas. And so if we had to categorize his position, it's predominantly around data and capturing it, software, upgrades, individual users, all the stuff that goes on in the field he's responsible for, from devices to software implementation. So it's a catch-all, but he does so many different things. It's hard to say. I mean, any day it could be a little different focus depending on the situation.
Well, and sometimes the IT manager gets pigeonholed into just the technical.
Just the tech, right. And for him, I think it's been, because he comes from a more IT perspective and situation in other companies and experience so we've really tested him on how flexible can you be, right? So it's been a journey.
Yeah, how's that going?
Yeah.
For the most part, that's the other thing is, I think part of the self-worth is, we do a lot more with less effort. Guys in the field, they spend less time collecting the data for us. The easier we streamline it, and easier we have to do it. So we've cut out people in the office that, at this point, we've made do with less.
So let's dig into the data and importance of it. We'll get to automation as well, which I think you're alluding to a little bit in your comment there. But so the importance of data, what does that mean for OE? What does that mean for you, Terri? And then we can ask Mike the same question.
I came from the tech side of the business. I don't want to give my age away, but many decades in technical consulting, right? Both software, hardware, back office, networking, you name it. And so that was kind of what I was raised to do, right? And one of my strengths was being able to, organize information, come up with a plan, enact the plan, bring the teams together. That's kind of where I spent a lot of time. And I think data is a big part of that for us. When I came in to help my son, that's where he had the biggest challenge. They could go out and produce the work all day long, right? And God, they actually had some great projects going, right? But the problem was, or the issue on the back end was, just because we produced something really well doesn't mean we've tracked it. Things like, how are you billing for the project? How are you capturing the dollars for the project? What do you know if you made any money on the project? Those are important pieces that people forget about, or it's easy to ignore early on. And so that's where we've spent a lot of time in making sure from day one, did we have something reproducible, right? That we could go in and pull out specific reports or pieces of information that helped us manage not only the field, but also the office side of it. And so that's been a big focus for us. And then as the industry has evolved, right, over the last 17 years in particular, adding more types of software or processes has been instrumental in helping us streamline.
That she sees everything, right? She touches everything.
Right.
So they've implemented Assignar before I got there, or right about the same time.
Uh-huh.
But based off of that, the data that OE collected in Assignar was not unneeded. It was to a point for a reason. This is the reason we're collecting it. It may be for the estimators. It might be for the accounting system. It might be for the supervisor. But every piece of data had a reason. And we didn't collect data that was erroneous. Okay. We didn't care. So we didn't collect.
Like, what data from the field are you collecting?
Oh, we collect their time and through a custom form. Eventually, we will get to your time
tracking.
check.
Yeah, but we're talking about the product team.
We're going to get there. And that's part of the thing is with Terri. Terri put restrictions around what she wanted, and the ability to collect the data means if I was an equipment operator, what piece of equipment? I couldn't continue until I told you what piece of equipment. And did I complete the operations, equipment, trenching, safety information, incidences, obviously time, daily project logs, daily pre-task planning. The nice thing over the paper is we have the ability to capture photos, and the guys take photos, and they're great for project logs and safety or incidents and hits type things. So we're collecting a lot of stuff, but we're not collecting an extra lot because we've trimmed that down. So if someone came in and looked and went, wow, you guys collect a lot of data. Well, we use all of it. And we've shown that to the field guys. Because if you implement it to the field, when the field guy understands that you use that information, then they're not so bad about filling out the form. But if I was filling out a form to say, hey, Chris, what's your favorite color? And I got to always say that, but no one uses it. Why are you even asking me that question?
And that's a big part of implementation. And once people, no matter what their role is, once they understand how the data is going to be used, and, it's kind of like that adage, what's in it for me? So when we implemented in our field over 3 years ago, the first question was, what's in it for me? So what was in it for them is we had to have really great answers and processes set up that we're going to give you information back. We're going to help you be better. You're going to help us be better. So it was a collaborative effort. But Mike is exactly right. Do not collect it if you're not going to use it, because right now, in 2022, we ran some numbers for you. We processed, if you will, almost 23,000 forms or major pieces of information, which was huge, 23,000. And we use virtually every piece of that in all facets of the business. So again, it's not burdening people with processes or forms or data that they don't care about it. So the principle should be, what's in it for me? And if you can answer that question, then you're going down the right path.
Plus, we've modified forms. So the timesheet, we've evolved. So after about a year and a half, we evolved, removed 2 questions. So in 2022, we did almost 13,000 timesheets. So if you save 10 seconds by those two persons, taking those two questions, it adds up really quick.
Right.
And the guys are happier because they do it. Now to them, they think it takes forever. Okay. Knowing our timesheet doesn't take more than 30 seconds, a minute at the most.
Right.
Okay.
And
these
the front
guys
and
are
the back end of
and they're pulling their teeth. Oh, this is forever. So we've gone back and changed that. We've changed trench safety. There was, when it was originally developed, that formed back and said, well, what about this condition? And this is a rare one, but we'd like to be able to do this. Or we have locates, but we have a yes, no. And we want an NA because we're not digging. We're just out to review it. So we've gone back and modified the forms to collect additional data or make it easier for the guys in the field. And then Terry's even given them awards for putting forward a cash award, real cash.
I think it was there one day.
Yeah,
maybe that happened. Yeah.
For putting in those suggestions that it's going to have an effect for the rest of the fields.
See, and that's the key too on the collaboration side, that they were getting recognized for their input, that it wasn't just a brick wall and we just do it this way and do your thing and don't talk to it. It was very much a two-way conversation. I think that's a really big deal. The other thing that we've done awards on have been things like, how well do you fill out a daily project log, right? And one of the things that you'll find in construction is people are competitive. So we've got a star project log person that does amazing project logs. Everyone wants that now, right? Mm-hmm. So it's been fun to see the evolution. I mean, our folks, the majority have been here since, way beyond when we implemented the Assignar tools and the forms. They're excited now. I have to say, if we go out and we're like, did you do this? Or what do you think about that? That's the other part too, is trying to pull people and get their input. Don't forget that. That's really key.
So when we talk about, so you guys, obviously 23,000, 13,000 timesheets, a lot of data. And it could have been a lot more to your point. Right. Share a couple of those.
Sure. So on just a general reporting, let's start there.
Okay.
We've developed and Mike has implemented the ability to do automated reporting from the data, right? So he's got them set up. For example, we're collecting data from the equipment operators, right? It's a very simple form, boom, 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 mm-hmm. right? That data goes into a weekly report that alerts the maintenance staff back at the shop or the office. Here are all the things that need service. That's pretty amazing.
So then they
right?
prioritize their days.
Exactly. So every morning they're meeting with their team. Now they may have gotten an emergency crisis call. That's one scenario, but in general, they're looking at that report that they're getting and they're prioritizing, right? And it also tells them, where is the equipment? Wouldn't that be great? Because you got 100 pieces of equipment. There's all kinds of challenges.
Any given time.
Exactly. Or something got moved. Right. So that was really important. We have weekly reports that come out and tell us, who filled out certain forms that might be relevant, that maybe a project manager needs to know about. So the sky's the limit. And the tools to do that are embedded or are a part of the Assignar app. And so we've created all these custom automated reports. But where it really shines, in my opinion, because I'm more on the accounting side, of course, and having that timesheet data, which, by the way, we've automated to go to our payroll on our job costing system. Flick. We can bring that field data in. It's in an automatic report and we have it in the right file format, plug it into our accounting system, and literally from start to finish, about 30 minutes by the time we're reviewing the data and plug it in. That's pretty impressive. Yeah. So no double entry.
Yeah, but what were you doing before?
So before, I'm sad to say, like a lot of folks in our industry, so we had paper, way back when we had paper timesheets, sure. right? And on the timesheet, it had all the particulars of hours worked. It said what piece of equipment, right? And where were you with the job information and what was the work description. And as you can imagine, all these people turning in paper forms, handwriting wasn't the best. And so it became an interpretation game every week. And so then you had to figure out how to get all the paper forms from multiple crews back to the office in a timely manner, right? And then remember, people forget. There were many reasons that we wouldn't have
sure.
the data. So you get those on Monday. So then you'd have someone sitting there compiling them all, organizing them, then doing the data entry into the payroll and job costing. And that could take, with the volume we typically do, that might take a day,
Right.
right? Then you got to print out the reports. Then you got to proof it. Then you got to say, okay, is this signed off? Here we go. And then you'd move on to the actual payroll processing. So what Assignar did for us is we eliminated, that was our first initiative. We're going to eliminate that process. So it took a while. We had to test the theory, bring the data in. We had that. We were still doing some data entry initially. Then what Mike did was create an automated approach that ran in conjunction so we could test the accuracy. We were looking for specific areas that we needed to beef up, so on.
Sure.
So then we finally one day woke up and said, we're going live, right?
Yeah.
We'd done it, we were confident, and by golly, we went live, and first time out, it ran, no errors, no problems. We had payroll done in minutes, right? Versus
Days.
this incredible process. And, we already had payroll automated to shoot out direct deposit and all of that.
On that side of the fence.
Yeah, on that piece. But this made so much sense. It was like a miracle, right? So, and I get excited when data actually works. So we've been refining that. And as Mike pointed out, we can customize it. We get input from the field and they go, we really want to see this. We can go in and change that like that, right? Now suddenly we've got a little different compilation or the way that we're calling data in. So that's one area that was huge for us. Secondly, on projects, one of the areas that people forget about is what happens when someone on the project, because remember, for a lot of us, we aren't the top tier general contractor. Yeah, in some instances we are if we're working direct for an owner or say infrastructure, but in many cases, we're one of the 40 or 50 subcontractors on a project, right? So here comes something comes down that, there was a delay or we didn't catch a schedule change or there's a big challenge. Something went on and everyone's trying to figure out how did that happen, right? And this data's hitting from all these different places. You've got updated schedules. You've got on-site job meetings, right? Where you're actually part of a group with a bunch of people coming up with a new schedule. But then at the same time, you're working in one area and something changed. Maybe the survey wasn't right, so you had to move over here. How's that being captured? Because what will happen 6, 10, a year and a half down the road, how do you figure out who was doing what when? That's the challenge. So for us, we had one of those projects where there were so many moving parts, very challenging, lots of people working in tight areas, lots of delays for a variety of reasons. It could have been scheduling, somebody didn't survey something right, someone else was in the way. I mean, there were a variety of things, safety issues, and on and on and on. So we had a situation recently where we had to go capture 10 months, look at 10 months of captured data and figure out what happened. But it wasn't as easy as, well, when did we do the parking lot? No. These were segmented into all these different areas. So you had to have drill down data that said we were in this area on this day for this amount of time. We were doing X.
With these pictures and these
pictures, all of it, right?
Mm-hmm.
So at that point, we're looking at it. And so then we said, well, are we going to have somebody here on staff go read all the daily project logs that we assembled from the field? It's all cool and automated. Or are we going to think outside the box and we're going to figure out how we can get that data out like that? What's the best way to do that? So we turned to this guy and said, we know you can get it. What are you going to do?
You have 5 minutes.
Yeah, exactly.
How did you react to that? What was your initial response?
Yeah.
Well, it was all I had to do is find the data that was effectively the foreman's notes
For that
the work day and that project. Who was the person that filled out the report? What day did they work? And here's his notes. Then they went in and they did a search and they said, okay, when they're in section 3, subsection 1, let's go find all the data. Then they find all those and then go back and go. Anytime someone said the word survey, let's go find all the surveys. Let's find out. So they went through with keywords. Then they shrunk that number down to, instead of 10 months, you had about 8 to 12 really reports that were critical, and then another maybe 15, 20 that turned out to be somewhat needed. But it would have been days someone just reading through it and go, well, is this important? And because once I get done reading through it and you wanted to talk about survey, hold on. Let me go back to the first one.
Because then you're
I'm gonna go
rereading
with
it
this.
over and
So
over.
This gave them the flexibility that they could go, well, let's try these words. Okay, are we getting back what we needed? So it gave them the flexibility. Didn't pull all the data, just pull the data I need to let them go figure out which ones they did. Then we went in and we.
So literally, in typical fashion, I'm like, okay, go. You have 10 minutes. I want to know what's,
It was
yeah.
more like 5.
Right. So we got to look at this data enough to understand, did we have what we needed?
Right.
Because remember, that's the key
That's
here.
the first question.
Right. Do we have enough detail that we can actually research this and support whatever the sequence of events were? And, who is responsible for what? So I'm happy to say that using that kind of what I call extraction, if you will, of data. I mean, because the other option was what? We were going to go search PDF files because we happen to save those daily reports and PDFs. Well, we could do that. Do you know how long that would take to sit there and search PDF files? So no. We just wanted to use a tool that was already in the system, the insight reporting, which is incredibly powerful. Because remember, you can pull data from multiple data sets. I mean, it could be a whole bunch of different forms, not one specific. But in this case, it got it out, searchable format. We could pinpoint the range of days and where we think the issues occurred. And then from there, we could go pull specific reports, right? And then we could go on the search for, what about emails? What about other reports? What about the pictures? The pictures were very compelling because if you have someone really documenting what goes on a job site, pictures tell about, 1,000 words, right? Those pictures were invaluable in building kind of a scenario of what really happened. And I can say we're still in the middle of this, but what we've produced, I predict will prevail, and it's very good. And we're really proud of it. We put this together in a very short amount of time. And I think everyone, like the what's in it for me, then we went back and showed the field guys. Said, look what we were able to do.
Right.
Blew their mind.
Yeah.
Like, really? Like, yeah, because we were quizzing you. Well, what happened on that? If they don't know what happened last week, let alone 6 months ago.
Right.
So it was really compelling for the field guys because they kind of got into it. They're like, oh my God, yeah, we did do that. So when they saw the positive results, then they're more inclined to give us that kind of detail to make sure that we're well documented.
With insights is really, and the support and the whole team. It is not like I didn't know insights. I know reporting. Insights a little bit different.
Sure.
Understood the concept, but it took a little bit, and the power of what insights can do. And since then, we've run with it, and we built some pretty incredible reports that give us the data in the form we want to see it in, the data we want to see.
And one thing I want to stress there is that what Mike said is exactly right. Most people know, especially let's just say on the back office side, right? They've had some exposure to spreadsheets or other types of data resistance, right? You don't have to be a programmer to use the tool, right? So I started out early on because I was helping guide the initiative, right? And so I'm messing around with it, and I come from more of a developer background, but hadn't done that in a few decades.
Right.
And so I could figure it out. I needed to dig in a little more. This guy comes along. Of course, he's even more fresh with the tools and what can I do here? And people will say to me, well, Terri, we're going to have to hire somebody to do XYZ. No, you're not. You can find somebody in the organization that's just really good at, and is curious, if they're curious. And they're willing to spend a little time, go through some videos and some training and try to figure out how to get the stuff out. Once you have it, you have it. And then if you start automating, we will show other contractors automated reports and they'll go, how did you do that? Right? So it's like a little secret sauce. But you don't have to be a programmer. You don't have to be a developer. You don't have to be any of that, but you have to have a desire to figure out what works, what doesn't, and to explore a little bit. And I've seen people that come from accounting learn the tools and they're really excited. I've seen project managers work with it, but we happen to be fortunate. We have someone that has that background so we can do we press the envelope a lot of times, right? Because we're in there trying things that maybe
Sure.
some folks would know about. And that's what's really cool about, I think we've been involved in user group type events where people come together and share their Assignar tips. That to me is exciting, right? So the guy in, Utah is doing something different. We're like, really? Show us how.
Right.
Same thing. We'll show what we're doing. So that collaboration starts to build. And that's what's pretty exciting. So you have that flexibility. You put data in, you got to be able to get the data out.
Quick side note. So as she implemented it, they have paper forms. They're coming from paper, going electronic. Right? You guys set up the Word templates and emails. The PDF looks just like the printed form that they used before, but now it's all typed.
Right.
So it's that attention to detail that she did, and that Assignar allows you to do as well. It just transitions. So if you go look at an old form that was prior to Assignar, it looks almost identical to the printed form. It's all typed in. It's filled out from the form, and it comes in a bunch of questions in the form in the cell phone. They're going to answer it. It makes it look pretty and looks just like the same report that they did before. So looking at our files, we had stuff printed. You wouldn't see much difference from 4 years ago to what you see today.
That's true. And then we want to make it better, right? So we're constantly looking for ways to enhance. And the other thing is and I'm big on this, just don't ask questions that don't matter, because that's a huge implementation part with the field. They want to know it matters. And we're able to add color, right? And lots of buttons and check boxes and keep it simple. It's that old rule about don't make it a convoluted form that takes them 30 minutes to fill out.
Fill it out.
Yeah, you've got to think about who's the end user. What are they really pushing there on buttons and feedback that you're collecting? And so you want to try to make it a good experience so it's quick, right? If it's relevant, and then using text or speech to text is a big deal. Many of our people talk their content in, right? The description of certain items. So being able to use those tools, it's pretty exciting.
I actually saw that live on site when I was there for one of the jobs. Then that's what he was talking about, was the ability to just talk in.
They talk it in. Yeah. So was that on the safety side?
No, it was before that.
Okay.
When I was on site at the Lafayette, there was a different one.
That's right. So you saw them actually doing that. Right. It's pretty cool. So, because who wants to sit there and hand tag, right?
Yeah.
So they
especially
just talk
on the site.
Yeah, they talk it in. Yeah.
All right. So we're nearing the end of our time, but and I appreciate you guys for being here. Maybe to recap, when we look at data and automation and transformation, field operations, etc. If you were to give like 2 or 3 pieces of advice or like words of wisdom to someone in your shoes or like your shoes, what would that be?
And so from my perspective, the more information you capture, the better, right? But make sure it's the right information. That's really big. And spend a little time. Don't just because you can create something doesn't mean you're going to use it. Because you do see that factor, especially if someone's new in a piece of software, they want to create the world. Yeah. So be selective. Don't do more than you can work with initially. Take it one step at a time. Try to get people acclimated, on board. Let's solve this one too. Let's figure that out. Make sure it works, right? And then you can, from then on, slowly but surely add other pieces to what you're doing. And then remember, it's what's in it for me, and focus that on your end users, as we might call them, or your field people or whoever else is involved in the process. What's in it for them? And are you sharing information? People, the field folks will often say, we don't know what those people do in the office, right? It's kind of scary. So make sure that you're sharing information and that it's a benefit for not just the accounting people, because we love data and numbers, right? Sure. Take your time, test. The worst thing that can happen is you implement something and it doesn't work necessarily right the first time. You want to try to walk through the process and think ahead, try to think outside the box and involve lots of people, not just the person in charge. You've got to go out and get buy-in from lots of folks, take that information in, keep it simple, and then you implement. And then make sure that you have lots of check boxes or milestones or whatever you want to call it along the way. don't be satisfied. I always tell people that there's more, right? Think outside the box a little bit. So maybe you do have to evolve. You do have to change your forms. You do have to make it better. Never be content with what you have. Always be looking for ways to improve. So those are
And then
my
something
thoughts.
I noticed because I was on there, recognize. Is that something you like the awards or the prizes?
Absolutely. Right? And make sure you do shout outs to folks. And this would be true of anything, not just collecting data, right?
Sure.
Safety, you name it. Use the information that you have now to recognize people, right? So especially some of that safety data is invaluable. We use that to do all types of awards and recognition. So don't get too narrow-minded in your focus, right? So try to keep an open mind and think outside the box.
Try and get like at least the foreman buy-in. They know that they mess something up. Some forms you can add, and other forms you can't. Some forms they can go back and make changes. Other forms, no, we don't allow you to. I've built up enough relationship with the foremen and other ones. They'll reach out to me and go, I messed up. This is wrong. Can you help me fix it? And I'll help fix it. And you know what? I find that they do it very few times, once every other week. The other thing is when you do insights, if I only had this insight when I first started, is try and make your report a little more modular, meaning I can select the project or the job, the insight once, and I can let it select all my jobs or one job or 3 jobs for this date range. Because when someone comes to you and says in 5 minutes, can you pull me this data?
Well, I want to thank both Terri and Mike with OE for being here today. And I know our audience is really appreciate, enjoy, and learn from. So thank you.
Thank you, Chris.
Yeah.
We appreciate it. Thank you.